Okay, we are ready to begin today's webinar. This is a 2016 program orientation of California Multifamily New Homes, which is a PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric Company, new construction program for multifamily projects. Next slide. Great. So, I think we skipped one slide. If you can go back. Thank you. So as I mentioned, Pacific Gas and Electric Company is the provider of incentives and support for the program. And my name is Shannon, and I'm with TRC Energy Services, and we implement the program on behalf of PG&E. So any contact you have or questions that you have about the program, you can funnel through us, and we'll have all of our contact information at the end of this presentation. Next slide. So a little bit more about TRC. We've been running this program for the past 10 years. So this is actually the 10th anniversary of California Multifamily New Homes program. And I know a lot of you have participated in the program before. Our teams are based on the West Coast. So most of the folks that you're talking to are in Sacramento or Oakland offices. Next slide. Great. So today, a lot of you have participated in the program before, and this particular presentation is geared towards our participating energy consultants and HERS raters. So tomorrow we're having a separate orientation for the general public, and if you're a developer or architect, you're welcome to stay on this presentation. It'll just have a little bit more depth about requirements for energy consultants and raters who want to participate. So we will be recording this presentation and hosting it on our website, the recording and also the slide deck. So we'll share those resources with all the folks who registered for this webinar later today or tomorrow sometime. So we have a few folks from California Multifamily New Homes staff, or as we call it, CMFNH. So I'm Shannon. I work with a lot of projects as they're applying to the program and getting ready to move into plan review. And then we have Megan Daw on the phone, who is our plan review manager and also coordinates a lot of the HERS verification. And we also have Carol Waterbury, who's going to present a little bit later, talking about this new requirement, which is that all energy consultants and HERS raters kind of have to do a little bit of just provide a little bit of documentation at the beginning of the year, and then we'll have a list that we're maintaining of participating energy consultants and raters. So we'll tell you all about that, and then also just a kind of an overview of how to enroll projects in the program. So I am going to hand it over to Megan, who's going to do a program overview and also talk about changes in 2016. And then Megan will hand it over to Carol, and then we will talk about how to enroll projects. So Megan, over to you.
Thanks, Shannon. Welcome, everyone. So we'll give a brief overview of the program, CMFNH's goals, how projects can enroll, and the eligibility of projects, and incentives that are available to the projects. All right, so to begin, CMFNH, a little background information, is a public service program available to projects, new construction, multifamily projects in PG&E territory. The program offers cash incentives to promote and offset the cost of energy efficient design, energy design assistance and modeling assistance, educational opportunities such as lunch and learns and code training, which will become relevant for the next code cycle. And CMFNH also offers coordination with other programs such as the New Solar Homes Partnership. And all of these items sort of feed into the overall program goal, which is to promote and help facilitate energy efficient design in new multifamily construction. So who can access incentives and program support? Projects that are eligible are those that are in the PG&E gas and or electric territory, sort of highlighted in yellow on that map of California there. The buildings must be new construction, multifamily, and that includes apartments and condominiums. Duplexes and townhomes will actually go through CAP, and townhomes, that is a new kind of program policy, and we'll get to that a little bit later. Projects, in terms of their performance, their modeled performance, must meet at least 15% above 2013 Title 24 or a CMF&H score of maximum 84. And the incentives scale with that CMF&H score. And lastly, projects enrolling for the 2016 program must complete both construction and the field and HERS verification and documentation by December 31st, 2019. Great. So a little overview of the incentives that are available. Some of these are sort of our traditional incentives, and some are a little new to the 2016. So we'll go over them briefly here, as well as touch a little bit more details on the new ones a little bit later. So if you have questions on anything new, go ahead and wait till we describe them. And then if we haven't addressed your question, feel free to put that into the chat or question box. So the first set of incentives are the ones paid to the developers, and those are specific to the modeled performance of the project. That is anywhere from $75 to $1,000 per unit. And as we said, that scales with the better your CMF&H score is. So 84 is the maximum threshold. As you go down, the incentives increase. New to 2016 is an incentive for a design charrette. So TRC is, and CMF&H is hoping to promote sort of early design meetings by offering a $5,000 incentive to project teams to meet and discuss their energy efficient strategies. And CMF&H, also provides incentives to the developer to offset any HERS costs that go above and beyond normal HERS radar duties. And lastly, there's also an incentive paid directly to the energy consultant. And this, again, is to provide an offset for costs that are program requirements that go beyond a normal energy consultant's responsibilities for a project. On this next slide, there's a little bit more of the detailed breakdown of the incentives available. As you can see on that first portion, the performance, and this is modeled performance, as your CMF&H score goes down, the incentives increase. And if we realize that some projects hitting an 84 is difficult to do for some climate zones, and because the code has become more stringent over time, we still offer the 15% or above entry, and that is a flat $75. The common spaces and separate building, that is a new incentive that we are offering for 2016. And we will talk about this a little bit more later, but this is to promote energy efficiency in spaces other than the residential dwelling unit that are also used by tenants. The HERS rater, the design charrette, and the energy consultant, as we discussed.
Megan, can you talk a little bit about, oh, we have questions time. Can you talk a little bit about how folks find out what their CMF&H score is? And I neglected to mention this before, and Megan, you touched on it, but if folks have any questions, on the right side of your GoToWebinar panel, you'll see a little box that says questions. So if you have questions, you can enter them there, and we'll take them. We'll kind of restate your question and then take them online right now. So feel free to enter questions now, and then I'll let Megan answer that question I just asked.
Great. Yes, so the CMF&H score, and we'll go back to this slide just to look. The CMF&H score is somewhat like a CAP score for single family. It is somewhat based off of a HERS score, which more people might be familiar with, where you know, the higher the number is actually a worse performing building. We found that around, you know, 84 is a doable score, and below that is as you start to get more and more efficient. And how you access that number and find out how your project is doing is actually directly through the modeling software. So whether you're in the Feedback Res or the Energy Pro, you can, in your reports, you can print out or produce a utility incentive report that will show you the score for each of the orientations of your building or your unit. Additionally, CMF&H has developed its own utility incentive score calculator, which will produce the same number that's an output of the energy model. And this is useful for high-rise projects where that output might not be available directly from the model. So it's based off of the regulated loads and the TDV values that are, you know, as you compare your proposed building to the standard design, those regulated loads, if you can reduce the regulated loads in your proposed building, your CMF&H score will decrease. And if there are more questions, you know, I don't want to deep dive too far into this, you're always welcome to reach out to CMF&H staff, and we can, you know, walk you through how to determine what your incentive amount may be and what your CMF&H score is.
Yep, and that's kind of part of our project intake process. So we'll talk about this a little bit later, but as you are submitting an application for a project, once we have a little bit more information, like the size of the project and what your performance goals might be, and if you're including common space in your energy model, then we can help you to find a more accurate range of incentive that you might be looking at. So just keep that in mind. We recognize there's kind of a lot going on in this table, so we're happy to work with you through it. I had just a question to reiterate how we're distributing this presentation afterwards. So we are posting it online. We'll post the recording and the slide deck and share that with everyone. So you will all have it as a good reference document. I think we can proceed, Megan, to the next section.
Great. All right, so what's new in 2016? We are introducing incentives for common spaces. We touched on a little bit, and I'll go into some more details here. The design charrette incentive, and there are a few program policy changes. So first, the incentives for common spaces. So we are now asking that all energy models that are submitted for plan review include common spaces that are associated with tenants. So these are spaces like corridors, communal kitchens, lobbies, community buildings, gyms for tenants, and this does not include commercial spaces that are non-tenant used, spaces like retail, offices, or restaurant spaces. Those will continue to go through the Savings by Design program and not CMF&H. And again, we understand this is new, so as you work with the CMF&H staff, we will, you know, walk you through what building areas should be included in the models and not. And the incentives available for this are $25 per unit for attached common spaces. So that would be something like in a whole building model, if there is, you know, a common area lounge or a gym or a laundry facility within the building, that would up your incentive per unit. And the second option is sometimes there are separate community buildings on the property. Those will be following the Savings by Design incentive levels, which are, you know, based off of the electricity and natural gas savings, the kWh terms. and the requirements for these common spaces. So if it is a whole building model that is including these common area spaces, they will be required to meet the same program requirements of at least 15% above 2013 Title 24, or a CMF&H score of 84 or below. For the separate buildings on the premise, they are following the Savings by Design requirements, which is a 10% above Title 24. We do realize that sometimes a project may not comply to these eligibility requirements when including these spaces. So we will work on a case-by-case basis for projects, and may still allow a res-only model to enroll and only pay off on the residential units. Great. And now a little bit about the design shred incentive. So one of the biggest barriers we have identified is sort of getting all of the decision makers and energy efficient strategies in the upfront and early design phase. So we want to be able to promote energy efficiency early and have it included in the early strategy. So CMF&H sees that a design charrette is a great opportunity to discuss these strategies with the entire project team and also set project level goals that may include energy goals for the project, and just sort of serve as a starting point for this discussion to start happening. So to support this activity, CMF&H will be offering $5,000 incentive per project to hold a design charrette meeting. There are some requirements for the meeting. CMF&H must be informed in advance and given an agenda. A CMF&H staff member may join the meeting and will require some documentation of the notes and proceedings from the meeting. So more on that, and if you're interested in a design shred incentive and hosting a meeting, make your CMF&H staff contact aware, and we can work with each project that wants to do that.
And I'll just add a little bit, Megan, to this. So if you're working with like a TCAC project or any other program that that requires a design charrette, you can incorporate a CMF&H staff member into that meeting, and that would satisfy this requirement if you're also providing, the minutes and whatnot. It can be a phone call or in person, and TRC would send someone on behalf of CMF&H to represent, time permitting. And I just add, in terms of topics for these meetings, we have a big team of folks who work on the Title 24 enhancement studies, including Megan, who is presenting right now, and have done a lot of work on the 2016 standards, which are are expected to go live in early 2017, especially promoting things like high performance attics and higher value walls. So if you're interested in figuring out how you can start incorporating those features into your properties now, especially if you're maybe in early design on a project that's not going to permit until next year and you'll need to meet those requirements, we're happy to offer that expertise, incorporate folks that are part of the codes team to make recommendations on how to meet those requirements. And also we have a team that does a lot of work with zero net energy projects, so if that's something you're interested in, we can bring on some folks and discuss some ideas for getting closer to ZNE. Okay, I'll hand it back to you, Megan.
Great. And lastly, some policy changes for 2016. Projects must explicitly accept or reject CMF&H design suggestions offered at enrollment. So this is a kind of a step that we ask during plan review or during early design assistance. CMF&H will offer some suggestions on ways that can potentially lower the project's CMF&H score. and access higher incentives. And we are just asking for some feedback on those design suggestions. Becoming a little bit more common, we're seeing some all-electric projects. And as many of you probably know, when you model an all-electric project and there's gas available in that area, the modeling software may not produce the outputs that you were hoping. Some people have asked if they can use the no gas available designation for an all-electric project, and the state has not made a decision on what no gas available is actually defined as. CMF&H is following the state's direction by pointing it towards the local building jurisdiction. So if you have, if your project is interested in doing an all-electric design and wants to use the no natural gas available designation for modeling, we ask that you show some form of proof that your local building department is okay with that modeling designation. And it can be as simple as showing email communication, a letter from your local building department, just something to show us that they are aware of this and they are okay with that interpretation. And townhomes, so this is new for 2016, is that townhomes are actually going to be now modeled as single family and are going through the CAP program. That is the California Advanced Homes Program, which is more for the single family types of buildings. And this was directly from a CEC Efficiency Division decision. And lastly, we talked about this a little bit, projects now should submit with including common spaces for tenants. And we'll work with each project that needs some help producing those types of models. Additionally, we are asking that every project submit a lighting schedule at enrollment and installation. Shannon, do you have anything to add?
I guess I would just say for CAP, probably most of you folks know TRC also implements the California Advanced Homes Program. So if you do have a townhome project, and previously townhomes with an air gap in between units would go through CAP, and townhomes that were attached would go through CMF&H. So they're now all going through CAP, and we can help you, if you haven't worked with CAP before, we can help you find the right person to submit your application documents to. Be aware that CAP has pretty similar requirements, except that there isn't an option to qualify with a % above code option. It's all based on the score, and it's also a qualifying score of 84 or lower. Yeah, we're on questions. That's good. we have some questions, Megan.
Great.
So these are both common space questions, and I give you permission to choose to take some of these off the air or just summarize, and then we can provide a more thorough description as a follow-up email to everyone that's attending. So, okay, here's the first question. Should there be a single model for both the res and non-res areas of a project, or should they model res separately from non-res?
Sure, great question. So if it is a whole building model, definitely if it's within the same building, you should include one model that has both the res and the non-res spaces. If it is a separate building, such as a community building that is going to be on the site, that would be a separate model. And we know this probably goes, dives deeper, is that some projects, low-rise multifamily, majority of those projects would do a whole building model, and we have, but more often we see the unit-by-unit models being submitted to us. So we will definitely work on a case-by-case basis. If you are planning to submit unit-by-unit models, and there's something like a, laundry room that's in the building, I would think that it's most likely best to submit that laundry room as its own model if you plan to do the unit by unit. Something like corridors, if they're conditioned corridors, those might be included in the unit model, but we'll have to work on each project and see what type of non-residential spaces they are including.
I think we'll basically look at what you're submitting to the building department for permitting purposes. So we can start with that point, and then if we have special needs, we'll communicate those when we're in the plan review process. Or if you have questions, we can talk about it earlier too. This is kind of another similar question. You sort of addressed it, but I'll let you specify if you want. So is a corridor considered a unit for common space incentives?
So yes, we will include a corridor as a non-residential space. The question then becomes, and we've heard a few issues come up with corridors if they are unconditioned corridors and what happens in the model when you include those spaces. So again, we are still kind of working through some of the details. We don't want to adversely affect any projects and force them to model spaces that are meant to be unconditioned. So it comes down to whether that's going to be a conditioned corridor or an unconditioned corridor, and your particular modeling strategies if you are doing whole building versus the unit by unit.
Great.
So that didn't maybe directly answer the question, but we can take it offline, and as these specific projects come into CMFNH, we can work with each one individually until everyone gets a hold of how we are transitioning for 2016.
And we have a few more questions, Megan, on this topic, specifically about how to reconcile low-rise models with non-res space. So I think probably we have drafted a full policy on this, and that'll be part of our program handbook, which is almost ready for everyone to see. So we will send that out as soon as it's approved, hopefully in the next couple weeks. And in the meantime, we'll just send a follow-up email to everyone that registered with a little bit more detail about how we are approaching these questions. And I just had one more question, which I can take. So how to go about setting up a design charrette with the program. So if you are interested in working with us, you can just easily enter a question and let us know, and we'll follow up with you after this meeting. But in the future, if you're working with one of our kind of application coordinators, you can let them know if you have a specific project. And if you haven't started working with anyone, if you don't have a representative with the program yet, you can just email our general email, which is info@cmfnh.com, which we'll have in this presentation at the end of it, so you'll know. And just tell us a little bit more about your project and what kind of what goals you have, what you'd like to pursue, and what you'd like some additional support on. And we always try to really complement our energy consultant and rater teams. So we want you guys to look good to your developer clients, and we want you to be able to potentially communicate some of our feedback directly to the developer. So we can be flexible in how we're providing recommendations to you. I think I'm seeing a few more kind of deep technical questions that we'll probably take in a follow-up email. So I think Megan will. I think we're on to Carol now.
And yeah, I just want to say one last thing on the common spaces. We realize it's kind of a change, and there are going to be some, bumps and challenges as everyone adapts. This is something that CMFNH is excited about, to include these additional spaces, and we hope everyone else is excited about it. And we hope to address, each of the specific questions and challenges that are going to come with this change. And with that, I will hand it over to Carol.
Okie doke. Hi, I'm Carol Waterbury, and I'm going to talk to you just for a few slides about becoming a participating energy consultant or HERS rater. What are the benefits of participating? What specific roles do the energy consultants and HERS raters play? And the process for becoming a participating energy consultant or HERS rater. So next slide, please. All right. So for multifamily new construction projects, there must be a qualified energy consultant and HERS rater in order to access the program incentives. TRC, as has been mentioned, offers the design and modeling assistance to help projects qualify if needed, and the incentives are available. Again, as has been mentioned before, paid directly to energy consultants. And then the HERS rater incentives are actually paid to the developer to help with those costs, since the developer will typically hire the HERS rater. The next slide, please. So, energy consultant program roles really serve as the energy expert to the developer, work with them to try to attain the highest level of incentives. We're looking at new technology, code-related issues with technology, helping them to meet current code standards. We're in contact with the projects at each stage to ensure they're meeting the program expectations and energy measures, and to help with any, facilitate any kind of assistance. So that's pretty explanatory. Initiate the HERS registry by uploading the T24 compliance forms. The energy consultants model the building to determine the estimated energy use. Next slide, please. And the HERS rater roles, again, they perform the tests, verify all measures that are enrolled, match developer expectations by actually doing a field verification, confirm compliance with the Title 24 standards, uploading the compliance verification forms to the registry, submitting the proper documentation to the CMFNH HERS coordinator, which happens to be Megan, you just have been hearing from. I try to reach out, hopefully quarterly, to stay in touch regularly to ensure project is progressing as expected, facilitate involvement by technical folks, or any other questions that you might have about the program or what's happening. One of the things I wanted to mention here, that it's really key that the HERS rater respond in a timely manner so as not to hold up project or incentive payments, and specifically all the final documentation prior to the incentive payments. Just try to keep in mind that as quickly as possible to try to get the tests and the documents uploaded so that we can progress to the incentive part of the program at installation.
And I'll chime in here really quick too, just to
Sure.
Specify a little bit what the documentation is. So projects have to hire a HERS rater regardless of whether they are performing HERS tests. And now for 2013 code projects, that's a mandatory requirement. But for a high-rise project that isn't taking HERS tests, even if they may not be uploading results to the HERS registry, we will ask that the raters for high-rise and low-rise projects confirm what the energy efficiency equipment and envelope specs are, so that we can calibrate the energy model after construction's done and make sure that what was modeled originally is still accurate, and we'll use that final energy model to generate the final incentive. So it's pretty rare that it happens, but sometimes if a project changes a bunch of their specs between the time that they enroll and the time that they complete, they may not continue to qualify if they drop below 15% above code. So if you are making changes to your scope of work, let us know, and just be aware that changes that the project team makes could affect eligibility. Great. Oh, and the document that we are alluding to here is called the Energy Measure Summary. So Megan will reach out to all the raters as soon as we've identified a rater for a project that shows what was in the energy model, and we'll ask you to check off if that spec is still accurate in the as-built project, and provide that back to us. Back to you, Carol.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, this last slide is just intended to be a quick view of the requirements for participating energy consultants and raters. We will be hosting a directory of participating energy consultants and raters on the program website very soon. I'm not sure how soon, but I know that it's being worked on. The requirements really include these 4 items, which is, they're really nothing new except for the agreement, but the W-9 by each needs to be submitted and on file. And if anything changes, like an address or anything, if you can remember to let us know. Sometimes the incentive checks don't get to the right person because something changes and we don't know about it. And once you provide a W-9, if everything stays the same, we don't need you to submit it each time. Just let us know that you have a copy on file, and we can certainly reuse it. We will ask all energy consultants and raters to attend this particular orientation webinar. And an agreement between the program and the rater or consultant is being developed as well, and will be available soon. Everybody will be getting, we're going to send a copy out to everybody that's been enrolled, all registrants, as soon as possible. And we'll need you to sign that and return it. And then certifications, you can see here what is required for CMFNH beginning 2016.
Great.
And
I just noticed something. So HERS raters actually don't need to submit a W-9, so we'll correct that in the slide deck.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, you're
since
right.
Since we're not paying raters directly. And the agreement is really just a quick form. If you've worked with like the multifamily upgrade program before, you're familiar with this form. It just requires you to sign off that you are licensed and you're familiar with the program. And the CEA requirement is new this year. So I think if you're an energy consultant, you're probably very familiar with this certification. And if you're new to the world, we're happy to tell you more about the CEA credential. And we'll actually also, for a high-risk project, we'll also take a PE. Okay. So are we on the questions? Yeah, we can take some questions.
Yeah, we can take questions if there are any.
Okay. Question about combustion safety testing. So that's not an explicit program requirement. We expect projects to do everything they need to do in order to get a sign off from the building department. If things that we do check are did you perform your the HERS tests that were specified in the energy model, and then if you if you did do HERS tests, we expect to see the registry certificates for those. So Megan is the HERS coordinator, and she will reach out to everyone. So we'll work with the project developers. Once a project gets enrolled, we'll ask them to tell us who the HERS rater is for that project. And as soon as we know who the rater is, we'll reach out to the rater and really explain all the nitty-gritty of how to conduct the HERS uploads. We definitely want a copy. Well, there's a few options for uploading registry certificates. So Megan is your contact for that, and you'll see her information at the end of this slide. Okay. Looking at questions. Okay. Good questions, you guys. Some of these are kind of detailed, so I'm deciding if I want to take them offline. Megan, I am curious how much thought we've put into registry activity for common spaces. Do you feel comfortable talking about that right now?
That is a great question. I was not part of the team that developed this policy, so I don't know what the discussion around the registry is. So we will get back to everyone on that.
Yeah. Yep. So just kind of a question about this change in shifting from to having a list of participating energy consultants and raters. So it's not a huge change in terms of kind of bureaucratic document submitting. We especially for the energy consultant requirement wanted to, well, really for both, wanted to make sure we're collecting all the certificates for CEAs since that's a new requirement and not everyone has it. In the past, we've asked energy consultants to sign off on the same application form that the developer signs off on. So we thought we would kind of shorten that that administrative burden by just having all the energy consultants sign off on one agreement at the beginning of the year rather than having to sign off on every single form. So hopefully that'll make it easier for everyone, and we'll keep those all on file. And Carol is actually in charge of, is going to be kind of maintaining that list. And so she'll be your contact for submitting these documents, and we'll provide more info about that in our follow-up email. So as soon as we receive all the documents from you, we'll post, we will post the list on, we'll post you to the list on our website. And hopefully that'll give you kind of additional credibility with your developer clients. And we do sometimes receive inquiries from developers who are looking for energy consultants or raters, so this will be a place where we can kind of refer to, and you may be receiving some inquiries that way as well. Okay, so I think we'll move on to the next section. We still have a few more questions, but we're kind of getting tight on time, so I will we'll follow up with you afterwards if you are expressing any questions right now. So how to enroll in CMF&H? So the process is pretty similar this year to last year, so we can just go straight in. Next slide. Okay. So the first step is going to be, in the past we've had an interest form, which was sort of, we thought was maybe an unnecessary step. So this year it's just an application form. We can go to the next slide. It's a pretty short form. It just asks for information for the developer, like the address and the primary contact, a little bit of information about the project, like where it is, what size it is, if it's market rate or affordable, what the construction schedule is, So that's that middle section. And then the last, or I guess second to last section, asking who the project team is, if known. So the developer, the energy consultant, and the HERS rater. And then at the bottom, the developer has to sign. So we have uh, we have we have a lot of energy consultants and raters who will do coordination on behalf of developers as sort of a service. And so we are happy for an energy consultant or rater to be kind of the go-between. So if you want to be collecting this form for the developer and sharing it with us, that's fine. We're also happy to coordinate directly with the developer, and there's lots of developers who reach out to us directly, and perhaps we're less involved with the energy consultant or raters for the project, so we're pretty flexible on that. So the application is the very first step. So if you have a project that you're interested in submitting to the program, we'll share the link to the application so you can submit that form. Try to be as complete as you can, but if you don't know every detail, that's okay. We can go over it on the phone. Once we receive the form, we'll follow up with you. Is that what the next slide is? Next slide. Yeah. So once we receive the form, we'll follow up with you to talk about what your performance goals are. If you think you're going to exceed Title 24 by at least 15%, we'll offer design assistance at that point. So we'll still have projects that are permitted under the previous code, the 2008 code, who are seeing, maybe they're still flexible in their design and may want to modify some features. So we can provide some design feedback at that point, or coordinate a full design charrette for projects that are earlier in the design process. And we can provide an incentive estimate at that point as well. And then, so that conversation is really for TRC to confirm that the project is a good fit for the program. And once we've made that decision that yes, the project's a good fit, we will ask you to submit plan review documents. So any member of the team can be coordinating this process. It can be the developer, it can be the energy consultant. If the HERS rater is involved at this point, it could even be the HERS rater, although it's usually just the consultant or rater. Sometimes the architect is involved. We know that different companies take a different approach to program coordination for their clients, so that's why we have that level of flexibility. Next slide. So these are the plan review documents. Some of them are not plan related necessarily. So Megan, I'll hand it over to you to talk about this as plan review manager.
Sure. So at the plan review after enrollment, or when a project is enrolling at the beginning, we ask that the following documents are sent as part of the application process. So we have the energy models from either Energy Pro or the CBEC. That can be CBEC Res or CBEC Com for the high-rise projects. And the energy model reports, so those are often referred to as the Title 24s or the CF1R, the PERF 1C, as well as the utility incentive report. Those are both outputs from the model. A full plan set, so the architectural plan set, and any types of mechanical equipment specifications and window specifications, anything that can be verified to show what you are modeling in the actual energy model. And then the developer W-9, that is for payment purposes, and as well as the PG&E will serve letter to verify that the project is in PG&E territory. And then, actually doing the plan review, again, we must use, for your energy models, must use the most current version of the 2013 Title 24 CEC approved software. That's currently the CBEC Res 4B or the CBEC Com, the most recent version, or Energy Pro 6.7. We know that there are some versions available for the 2016 Title 24. We are not, accepting those for obvious reasons. The models now, again, should include the common spaces, but remove any retail or office spaces that are not associated with tenants. There is sort of a no cooling CMF&H calculation that we'll do separately. So if your project is expecting to not install mechanical cooling, you should contact TRC, and we will walk you through the process of figuring out how to adjust the models. The point of plan review is to just, kind of verify that the energy models, make sense and are accurately portraying what the design and architectural plans are showing. Excuse me. And our team will look through the energy models and compare those to the equipment specifications and the architectural plans, and just to try and document anything that may be different between the two. Sometimes conversations happen between the energy consultant and the developer, the architect, and they aren't necessarily always captured in the documents. So we'll sometimes come back and just, say we noticed this is different, has something changed along the way. And that's just really to make sure that we are capturing the most accurate model, because that is where the CMF&H score and the subsequent incentive are based off of that model performance. We ask, once plan review is done, the particular plan reviewer will send out any comments or requested adjustments or questions to the energy consultant, and the energy consultant should respond within 10 business days. So about, we can have 2 weeks for responses and adjustments to be made. At that time, we might go through a quick another plan review, and may come back if there are any unresolved issues. Otherwise, the project usually is submitted for incentive reservation. And as part of the plan review, we will point out some pieces where we think the project could push a little bit further and maybe lower their CMF&H score. But we do realize that that is sort of late in the game to be providing feedback. So we encourage all projects to, request and get CMF&H involved in the early design process. And then construction completion. So we all know that what is enrolled to the project and what is designed, over the course of construction, there might be, changes along the way, whether the project buyer didn't know that those particular windows were being specified for a reason and there was a sale on these other windows, or, there's a slew of things that might happen. We realize they happen. We just need to be made aware of them. So at construction completion, CMF&H actually has a field verification step. So that is the HERS rater going above and beyond their HERS verification duties and field verifying different aspects of the project. And those are laid out from the very beginning about what a HERS rater's responsibility is for looking at particular aspects of the project. And along the way, and Shannon touched upon this, it is, stressed that the energy consultant is in communication with CMF&H and letting us know about any changes that are happening along the way, so that we can make sure that the project stays eligible for incentives. And at the end, we look at, what was actually constructed versus what was enrolled to us, and the final incentive value is determined at that time based off of what we call the as-built models and the modeled performance. Great. So I think that is sort of, the brief overview, and I'm the main contact for that sort of construction completion HERS coordination. Carol will periodically check up, I think quarterly, on projects so that we know if they are staying on schedule for their, project construction completion and their HERS verification schedules. And then I will work directly with all of the raters to gather those final documents and that field verification document. And if any changes need to be made on the models, we coordinate directly with the energy consultant. So we are at questions, and I think that actually also wraps up our presentation today.
Great. Thanks, Megan. We've touched on this a little bit, who the project team is, all the folks who are working on California multifamily new homes. So you'll start out, if you have a project, emailing our general email address, info@cmfnh.com, which is on this page. And one of our program representatives will follow up and find out more information about your project, and that person will work with you to collect those documents, like the application and the plans and the will serve letter, those things that were on a slide a few slides back. Then once we receive all those things, we will identify a plan reviewer for you for the energy consultant to kind of work with, and perhaps we'll have comments for revisions or perhaps not. And that person will notify you when the project completes review. And assuming the project is approved, we'll submit the incentive request to PG&E. And once PG&E confirms that they've approved the incentive request, your primary contacts moving forward will be Carol. Carol works a lot with the developer contacts, and Megan works more with the raters and energy consultants to wrap up kind of final as-built documentation. And we issue all incentives after construction and verification are complete, and we'll submit the incentive request to PG&E. Pending their approval, we will issue the checks. We will follow up to everyone that registered to this webinar with the slide deck recording and kind of a highlight of questions that we have addressed here, including questions about common spaces. We'll provide information about for contact information for the folks that you've heard from today. And happy to start setting up design charrettes, happy to start talking about some of your projects this year. And I'm sure a lot of you folks are gearing up, trying to permit as many projects as possible before we switch to the new code cycle. So we encourage you to get in touch with us as soon as possible. As soon as you know you're working on a project, you don't have to wait until you permit to apply. We're happy to look at early models, and if as long as you don't make significant cuts to efficiency so that you'd fall out of the program, we can enroll you with an early energy model. So that's a lot I just said. Thanks so much for joining. We really recognize you energy consultants and raters as valuable members of the program community, and appreciate your help in identifying projects that are a good fit for the program. And we're excited to provide design assistance and incentives for those projects. It is 1 o'clock, and appreciate you taking time out of your day. Expect to see an email from us shortly, and thanks to Megan and Carol for speaking on this presentation. We hope to talk to you soon. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.